Well, a lot going on in the car space at the moment. You may be thinking with another fuel price hike, electric cars are the better option. At the same time, many people in Europe and the United States are driving those cars at the moment. There are some electric cars here, but in fact, it's more expensive to import an electric car into South Africa than a car with an internal combustion engine. To give you an idea of how quickly things are moving, it seems the European Union won't accept imports of petrol cars from the year 2030. That's only 8 years away. But there's a regulatory wrinkle. It now appears in our country you cannot get a driver's license for a petrol-driven car if you do the test in an electric car. Robert Chandler is the Managing Director of the South African Institute of Driving Instructors. Robert, good afternoon to you. This seems really odd. Have I got this right? You can't, if you do your test, if you learn to drive an electric car, you can't actually get a driver's license. You won't be licensed to drive a petrol car.
Good afternoon. That's, yes. That is actually the way it's been worded. I think the problem that's happened is that, you know, there's so many things happening around road safety and that and traffic legislations. These little type of things fall through the cracks. And previously, other than the little milk delivery vans that we had in the 70s and the 80s and the delivery carts that they used to operate, pedestrian operated, there were never really any electrical vehicles operating around, and then you had forklifts. But they all fell under a different category of license. And as times have changed, it was just generally accepted that if you did a license in a manual vehicle, you automatically could drive any class of category of vehicle in that class. And then obviously the automatic came out simultaneously, so they made a differentiation. And then nobody's actually thought to update the legislation on electrical vehicles. And if you have a hybrid is covered by automatic, because it does come over onto a petrol-driven engine. But then obviously the fully automatic vehicle falls into a different class altogether. And unfortunately, it's fallen through the cracks. And definitely legislation says if you use a fully electrical vehicle, you are going to be restricted to a license that is endorsed electrical only.
Okay, I've never actually driven an electric car, and I realize that someone somewhere is going to be quite angry that I haven't. But is it very different to drive from a normal petrol automatic? I mean, is it the same thing?
The thing is, it's just a different power source, but I must be honest with you, I've driven the hybrids and that and the electric vehicles, and it takes some getting used to. Because you've got no sound. Everybody's used to revs. You match yourself to the revolutions. You adapt very quickly, but it's still a little bit different. It's quite a novelty to drive it, but I really see no difference. I just think it hasn't been malicious, or it hasn't been somebody that hasn't done their job. I think all round we've also got to understand maybe we could have had a bit more pushback from the motoring fraternity and maybe from manufacturers who brought these vehicles in and should have said, hey, you know, maybe there's a loophole here, let's have a look at it. So all round, I think we've just got to fix it. We have engaged with the Department of Transport, and something is going to be done. We've just got to look at how it can be done, but it is going to be fixed. I don't see any pushback or any reason not to fix it.
I suppose, I mean, an electric car, I mean, I'm guessing here, you've driven one, I haven't, would possibly accelerate more quickly than a petrol-driven automatic, and you make the point it would be quieter. So in other words, an electric car is, I mean, degrees here, is slightly more dangerous, slightly more difficult to drive because you don't have that feedback of the revs than a petrol-driven automatic. In other words, they've got things the wrong way around. If you're able to drive an electric car, then you should be able to drive a petrol-driven automatic.
No, I don't think it's a case of getting it the wrong way around. It's the same thing. Just get used to it. There's no, you know, it's the same as getting into a 6-cylinder or getting into a 4-cylinder. Where do you start drawing the red line? You start blowing it down to that. We're going to have about 3,000 different categories of licenses. Same as motorbikes. Where do you draw the line? 125cc, 250, 500cc, or 750cc. Where do you draw it? So no, an electric vehicle, it is, I have said that there is a difference, yes, but it's a feeling. So you're going to adapt to that very quickly, especially, yes, there is instant power. It's a very nice feeling driving an electric vehicle. I adapted very quickly and I quite enjoyed it.
I mean, it seems that this is the way the world is going. I mean, in countries where they don't have quite our electricity problems, it's actually a lot cheaper, as I understand it, to run an electric car. We are going to run foul of the European Union. We produce cars with internal combustion engines. We won't be able to import them into the European Union in just 8 years from now. I mean, it's not just the law where we're falling behind, is the point.
Yeah, I think I'm not too much up to where we send our vehicles to. I think a lot of them go towards China, South America, Africa, places like that. I'm not too sure. But I think, yes, we are a little bit behind. But when it comes to the legislative side of it, it's fixable. Yeah, we do have these little glitches. But in this case, I think it's fixable. And it's only really come to light because one of our members actually went and took one of his students for a test. He had actually bought the vehicle for himself, and then he went and took her for a test. And the examiner said to him, you're going to be endorsed. And only then did it actually come to light. Although I've driven one, I've never even considered it. And I've got 40 years history in law enforcement. So, until it actually came up, nobody considered it. So it just needs to be fixed, I think, at this time.
Robert Chandler, thank you for Managing Director of the SA Institute of Driving Instructors. I do appreciate it.